Thanksgiving's right around the corner, and that means we need to talk Thanksgiving wines. Thanksgiving is my Super Bowl. It's by far my favorite holiday. It centers around food and wine and friends and family, but without the pressure of gift giving. You just get to show up and enjoy. A week ago, I put out a survey to our VIP members about what questions you had regarding Thanksgiving wines. And you guys asked all sorts of things. What pairs well with not just the turkey, but all the dishes? What do I drink while I'm cooking? Do I serve one wine throughout the whole time, or do I course it out? What sparkling wine do I recommend? What wine should I bring to a Thanksgiving dinner as a gift? And what single wine works best if I'm only opening one bottle? I'm happy to say I'm going to answer all of these questions in this video. Let's get a few out of the way. I do like to course out my meal, so that's how we're going to approach this. That being said, when we get to course number 4, I'll give my recommendation of what to buy if you just want a simple answer of what one single wine to get. And while I'm going to give some specific producer recommendations today, you can also just take the categories of wine that I recommend and head to your local wine shop and simply shop their inventory. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the like button so more people can find this video, and give us a subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, course number 1 coming at you. Course number 1 is not really a course at all. It's your cooking course. The early afternoon, post-coffee, first sip of booze for the day wine. This is going to be my most off the beaten path suggestion for the day, because I tend to use the holidays as an excuse to splurge on some classic wines that I wouldn't normally buy. But for this course, we're going to start off with something that isn't really a wine at all. We're going to start with a dry, sparkling cider. I love this for your cooking course. These are very fall-esque as they're made from apples. Plus, a good cider has qualities similar to good wine. Apples have different varieties and terroir, just like grapes do. I mean, think about it. You probably even have a variety or apple growing area that you like I like Macintosh, for instance. And ciders are low in alcohol, usually under 10%, which is really good for pacing yourself. You're looking for a cider that is made more like a wine than a beer. This means it should come in a wine bottle, it may have a vintage on it, and sometimes it's made in the champagne or traditional method or aged on the lees, and oftentimes it comes from places or producers that also make wine. Some of the best versions of this style of cider come from Calvados, a place in France famous for its apple-distilled brandy. If you can find DuPont Reserve cider, this is great. It's aged in Calvados barrels for 6 months before being bottled on the lees. But if you can't find that, Virginia and New York and Washington make some great ciders as well. And a side note, you may also see me drinking a gin and tonic while I'm cooking. Course number 2. This is your appetizer course. Guests are arriving and everyone's hanging out, snacking on cheese and charcuterie, finger foods like fried apps and stuffed mushrooms, perhaps some seafood like shrimp or oysters. I always like to put out white anchovies, which are one of my favorite things on the planet. Anyway, there are a ton of different foods here, so you need a versatile pairing wine, and that calls for champagne. Champagne is high in acid and has lots of palate cleansing bubbles, so it goes with almost anything, but especially salty, fried, or acidic foods, which most appetizers fall under. This is an occasion to get real champagne. Usually I'm a big advocate for champagne alternatives like Cremant, Cava, or American Sparklers, or Franciacorta, but holidays are my excuse to splurge and spend a bit more money on the real deal. There's a terroir and a linear elegance that's just so distinct about champagne. Plus, I want to put my expensive wines up top before my senses start to dull, so I'll probably spend the most money on this course. 2 of my favorite and fairly easy to find producers are Pierre Peters for a lean, elegant style, and Bollinger for a rich, toasty style. But have some fun if you want and put out some grower or vintage champagne depending on how much you like your in-laws. I'm kidding, kind of. Honestly, I actually think it's totally okay to have a splurge bottle for you and a select few others stashed in the fridge, and have a more reasonable bottle out in the ice bucket for your guests who may not care as much about wine as you do. Course number 3. Maybe this is a little overkill, but I do like to do a soup course, either a butternut squash or pumpkin soup. Soups are easy to make in advance and just heat up the day of. They really impress guests, and most importantly, it gives me an excuse to work a Riesling into the meal. Riesling is one of the most versatile pairing wines out there. It's got high acidity to cut through the creamy soup, and I'll go for something that has just a hint of residual sugar to go with the mildly sweet, but also lightly spiced soup. Again, we're gonna stick with the classics and opt for a Mosel Germany Riesling, as the Germans are the kings of Riesling. These wines are racy, floral, citrusy, and with mineral notes, particularly slate. I probably want something that says Cabernet on it, which are usually a lighter style and only a hint of sugar. J.J. Prum Wiener Zonneher Cabernet is a classic producer from a historic vineyard in Mosel, and Dr. Lucen also produces a wine from this vineyard at a more affordable price point. Donhoff's Estate Riesling is also great, but you can often find quite affordable aged Rieslings, which usually bring that added dynamic of a richer wine and unique petrol notes. So ask your local wine shop if they happen to have any. Before we get to the main event of Thanksgiving dinner, I want to talk to you quickly about our Vino VIP Club. I mentioned it earlier because the people who asked the questions that helped form this video were our VIP members. This is our membership club that gives early access to all our videos, including our full episodes and the YouTube videos, monthly raffles and giveaways, virtual Zoom hangouts with me, and a bunch more. It also really helps support us because we're independently produced. Plus, the first month is free. So if you have a moment, do me a favor, click the link above or in the description to sign up. All right, it's Thanksgiving dinner. Aunt Mary has already tried to bring up politics twice, the turkey is on the table, and we need some wines. The thing about Thanksgiving dinner is that there are a ton of different dishes, so you need a really versatile wine, or should I say wines. My recommendation is to put out both a white and a red, and those wines should be a cool climate Pinot Noir and a cool climate Chardonnay. You've probably seen this Thanksgiving advice before. We're not making any groundbreaking discoveries here. These wines are great with a variety of dishes because they're high in acid to cut through the fatty, rich foods, and they aren't too big in body or alcohol or tannin, so they won't overpower anything. And because this is Thanksgiving, I feel like our main course should be American wines, though I will give some French options too. Our cool climate regions in America are primarily Oregon, Santa Barbara, California, and New York. For Chardonnay, you can't go wrong with J. Wilkes Santa Barbara Chardonnay or the Pairings Chardonnay for something slightly oaked, or Fox Run's Doyle Family Chardonnay from the Finger Lakes for unoaked. For Oregon, Lingua Franca makes a really elegant chard, and if you wanted to splurge and leave America, Pierre-Yves Colin-Moret makes some of my favorite white Burgundy of all time, and his entry levels can be had at around 65 bucks. For Pinot Noir, I love the Santa Barbara Pinots from Presqu'île, Pence, or Melville, and from Oregon, I like the Lang Reserve, Erie Estate, and Kendright. If you wanted to go Burgundy, Drouhin and the Flave make solid entry-level Bourgogne Rouge, and to really impress, if you can find it, Grevaux's Nuit Saint-Georges or his Vin Romani go for about $120. But Vince, what if I just want one wine? Forget all these courses and options, make it simple for me. I just want to bring one wine as a guest or offer one choice of wine as a host. For this, we have to make it Beaujolais. Beaujolais is a region in France that makes red wine from the Gamay grape, and the wines are fruity, fun, strawberry, bubblegum, potting soil, floral, and sometimes even have banana notes. Beaujolais is 1, affordable at between $15 to $40, 2, pairable as they have almost no tannin and tons of juicy acidity, 3, a crowd pleaser because they're both fruity and earthy, and 4, it's between a white and red as it can be served slightly chilled. You can't go wrong with anything from the Gang of 4 producers, which are fairly easy to find and start at around $25, but you could pick up any random Beaujolais Village for about $15 and you'd likely be safe. And with that, we've arrived at dessert, and I have the perfect wine for Thanksgiving dessert, which I'm assuming includes some combination of pumpkin pie, chocolate pie, apple pie, and pecan pie. If you're showing up to someone else's Thanksgiving and need to bring a wine, this is the wine I recommend. It is a great gift wine. No one else will bring anything like it because dessert wines are too often completely underrated and forgotten about by most people. And it has a cool history. It's Madeira. Madeira is a wine from a tiny island off Portugal of the same name that's both fortified, which means brandy is added to boost its alcohol and leave some residual sugar, and oxidized, having been exposed to both heat and oxygen. But the really cool part of this is the story. This wine was discovered because back in the day, they would transport these wines through the tropics by boat, which would expose them both to heat and oxygen during the journey. Because the wine was already exposed to these elements that typically ruin most wines, They were indestructible. And so these wines were some of the only wines that could last the journey to America before refrigeration and planes. And so all our founding fathers were drinking it. It was even used to toast at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The Rare Wine Company makes a great Madeira called Boston Boal that's sweet but still fresh, full of toasted nuts, orange peel, espresso, and warming spices. Blandy's also makes a great Madeira at a more affordable price point. I recommend their Boal or their Verdelho. And a bonus is that if you don't drink the whole bottle, these wines last for months to years after opening. Whew, we made it. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope this provided you some insights into what you're gonna bring for Thanksgiving this year. My last piece of advice is to make sure you're buying these wines from a large, or even better yet, a local wine shop, not a grocery store. You'll get much better wines. Let me know your favorite wines for Thanksgiving in the comments. And again, if you haven't already, please subscribe and consider joining Vino VIP to help support us. And if you haven't seen our full travel episodes, check them out. I'm sure you'll love them. They're all available for free on our page. Thanks for watching. Until next wine.